It starts with violence, hate, rage, death. We see it for a while until the camera zooms out slowly. A monkey, seemingly confused and constrained to a table, is watching humans beating, hurting, killing each other. And the monkey is not alone. It's a whole room in a research facility with monkeys, which is soon raided by a group of people, environmental activists. The group is about to free the monkeys when one of the researchers enters the room and is in shock when he sees what is going on. Trying to call the security, he is being stopped by the activists. He tells them the monkeys are contaminated and should not leave. The activists ignore the warnings and free one of the monkeys, which turns out to be a very bad idea. Unleashing a monkey who probably only knows humans as people who hold it captive and probably basically torture him, as small, pretty strong animals with claws and sharp teeth who usually attacks faces and genitals, is freed. And it starts something that is worse than a couple of activists being mutilated by a chimp, who not just gets badly hurt but starts vomiting blood. She also starts attacking. And with that, the end begins. This is the start of one of the most influential zombie movies of the 21st century. Danny Boyle's 28 Days Later, an apocalyptic horror movie, to a big part drama, which shows the devastating effect of a virus to the English population. Here the zombies are not undead though. They aren't even technically zombies. They are infected. They are still people. They die like regular people. They run, they scream. They have some basic intelligence left. But most of all, they are very, very angry. After the prologue is showing the cause of the outbreak, we continue 28 days later. Jim, played by Cillian Murphy, wakes up in a hospital, only to find himself seemingly alone. He is alone in the room, he is alone in the hospital, finds some of the hospital destroyed, and when he steps outside he finds nothing. It seems like the whole of London is abandoned. We can figure out that this is because of the virus, but Jim has absolutely no clue. A horrific thought for everyone, and quite reminiscent of the first Twilight Zone episode, which is just as unsettling. But bit by bit, Jim finds some clues, but no people until he enters a church. Apocalyptic writing is on the wall, and once he enters the main area of the church, he doesn't find salvation, but death. On a closer look, he does see that some people are standing up and staring at Jim, but then he hears a loud scream, and the closest door opens. A priest gets closer and makes unnatural noises, flailing his arms around, and gets closer to Jim, who eventually hits him. But the priest seems to still trying to get closer. Jim runs out to the street, but the crazies are following him, when he meets the rest of our heroes. Selena and her partner, who throw Molotovs and blow up a gas station to get rid of the infected. What follows is a journey, first to Jim's parents, when they find a hint of someone still being alive in the city. A father and his daughter. They found a radio transmission from a couple of soldiers, who promise salvation, and all of a sudden, the group has a goal, and the difficult journey starts. 28 Days Later is a bit of a different kind of beast regarding the zombie subgenre. As I had said, they are infected instead of zombies, similar to the Crazies, and some Italian movies from the 80s and more modern takes like The Sadness. The rage virus is basically an extreme form of rabies that seemingly only affects humans and monkeys. Even though there is some conversation about horses being possibly infected, we never see any other animals being infected by rage. Animals seem to be aware of the infected and scared, as we see a bunch of rats running away from the infected in one scene though. There's only little action, and while there is some violence, it's not as much or as explicit as other movies in the genre. It's also quite special in that it gives the viewer a feeling of loneliness and being abandoned, which is emphasized with Jim in the beginning and later on when he has a nightmare in which he finds himself alone again. While the movie feels fresh when watching it, especially back then, you can't help yourself seeing a lot of familiar ideas from other post-apocalyptic and zombie movies. Not only have Infected been done before in movies like The Crazies, but also being alone in the way portrayed in the movie, as happened in the earlier mentioned first Twilight Zone episode and in I Am Legend and all its adaptations. Road trips are a familiar concept in most post-apocalyptic movies. The idea to find a cure, a solution, or just some peace or a safe place. And of course having some survivalist explaining what he did to survive. The ending also feels like a Day of the Dead speedrun in regard to the soldiers. It's also the part of the movie which I like the least, which is funny as I do love Day of the Dead. But here it feels a bit shoehorned in, and Jim's evolution is not that believable, I think. I will now dive into spoilers and explain the whole ending portion of the movie, so be aware. Jim, Selena, the father and the daughter arrive in the place mentioned in the radio transition. But no one is there. The father gets a drop of infected blood in his eye and turns into an infected himself. Just when the group is on the brink of attacking him as he turns, suddenly gunfire is heard and the father is being hit by many bullets. The soldiers are here and the group is taken to the soldiers' base. At first everything seems good. The place is secure, the soldiers have food and running hot water. But soon it becomes clear that not everything is good and well. There is no cure. The soldiers are getting a bit too touchy with Selena and the daughter, and there are tensions between one of the soldiers and the rest of the group. Another soldier is also getting bullied by the others. Eventually the situation escalates even more when the leader of the soldiers explains that he promised the soldiers women and they can't leave. When Jim and the others are trying to escape, he gets knocked out and one of the soldiers tries to hold back the others. Soon after, Jim and the other soldier are handcuffed and the women are being held in a room to dress up. Jim and the soldier are about to get executed and are led to a forest area which already has some corpses lying around, either from other executions or more likely infected that have been dragged off the property after being killed, as we see one attack on the property occurring. There is a scuffle though and Jim is able to hide in the pile of bodies and escape. Soon after, the in my opinion worst part of the movie starts, Jim's revenge. The soldiers look for him, but he manages to kill one of them with a relatively small stick. He also sits him into the jeep of the soldiers as he seemingly turned into Jason Voorhees. He then comes back to the base of the soldiers and shoots off the chain of an infected, who was captured by the soldiers, and starts killing and infecting the others. I don't know why Jim can suddenly shoot so well, I don't know why he can kill with a short stick, and why he doesn't look for a shirt while it is raining that much. I mean, even when he survives the fight, he will probably die of pneumonia. I also don't know why the soldiers are so incompetent. They just get slaughtered by an unarmed civilian and an infected. What about the alarms around the house and the mines? No one is looking for the safety and security of the compound all of a sudden? I thought they are guarding it very well. The infected and Jim just kill most of the soldiers, and Jim can reach Selena just in time, who is not sure if he is now also infected, which I have to admit is a nice idea after the rampage, after all the mayhem he caused, but followed up with a stupid joke. They try to escape, but the leader of the soldiers is already waiting for them and shoots Jim. But the daughter is able to get rid of him and they crash through the gate. The whole sequence is just odd. From the soldiers who turn insane after a bit more than a month, time is a bit odd here anyways. Jim's transformation was just never believable to me. Jim is the guy who walks alone into a gas station to look for something even though they just raided a supermarket, and walks alone through the building even though he sees corpses laying around and everything is dark, and he keeps searching for no reason, screaming hello. The guy who walks around and just shouts hello all the time, even when he knows there is danger, and all of a sudden he can take out a squad of soldiers by his own? While I like the movie and I am getting a bit nostalgic for it here, there are flaws. I love the beginning when Jim walks alone through London, but it doesn't quite add up. Infected have taken over and the biggest city of the country is almost empty except for a church and some random houses. Where are the corpses? Where are the signs of attacks? Why are there no car convoys stuck on the streets? Or checkpoints, anything like that? It's not here. Only in certain regions. At one point Jim is lighting a candle in a house which is attracting infected, but at another time they just sleep out in the open with a fire burning even though they have a car. Also, shouldn't the infected die quickly? They have a virus, are always running and screaming, and there is the question if they eat or drink. The infected in the compound is there for a short while, so they seem to be more like zombies in that aspect. So overall, I wouldn't say it's a masterpiece, but it is a pretty good movie. Sure, you can overthink it and nitpick it, but when you see over a couple of things, it's a good watch. Sure, if you have watched a couple of infected movies or read The Stand, it's nothing too groundbreaking. But it's a good movie overall, and gave us the 28 Days Later franchise, which also brought us 28 Weeks Later, which I remember liking quite a bit, even though it seems like it's almost hated nowadays. And it gave us Alex Garland as a screenwriter and eventually director. It gave Cillian Murphy and Naomi Harris a big boost in their careers and put them on the map, and Brendan Gleeson is just the best, as he also shows here, even though I don't understand why he didn't take the riot gear with him. Where did he even get that from? The camera work and editing and sound are also well made, but the biggest problem I have with the movie, except for Jim's turn into Rambo, is the picture quality. For some reason they seem to have used an early digital film, which just looks bad. Disney Plus has only the sequel, so I tracked down the Blu-ray double pack, so I could watch the first one in good quality, at least I thought so, but it doesn't look good at all. It pretty much has DVD quality even on Blu-ray. There are scenes that look flat out terrible, which is unfortunate. You have that scene that should be a beautiful meadow, but it looks like someone used watercolors and the water just splashed over the whole picture. But as I said, it's overall still pretty good and I'm getting nostalgic for it. And with that said, I will give 28 Days Later an 8 out of 10 and will check out 28 Weeks next.
Heading into District 1. Although District 1 is completely safe, outside the security zone, London remains a wasteland. There are a large number of bodies.
After the quiet and somber horror drama which was 28 Days Later and its success, that of course to be a sequel. Bigger, louder, more violent, with a bigger cast and more action. Sounds like a recipe for disaster, right? Well, let me be frank and spoil my opinion at the start of the review. I kind of fucking love 28 Weeks Later, and I do have a soft spot for it. I know, people seem to almost despise the movie nowadays, but I think this is one of the rare cases in which horror action actually worked. We had movies like Underworld, the Resident Evil movies and World War Z, which book I also reviewed on this channel, which didn't work that well, at least for me. But 28 Weeks Later and the Dawn of the Dead remake, they worked surprisingly well. They are not just mindless action schlock, but have well-made action sequences and horror which works. It is rather violent and bloody and overall visceral, but that's what you can expect from proper action horror movies, I would say. But let's talk about the movie itself. The movie which shows us England 28 weeks later, 28 weeks after the outbreak. We start while the rage virus is still devastating England. We see a couple of survivors that are not infected and are hiding. They have barricaded themselves in a cabin. The situation is tense. The people have obviously been sitting together for a while. A couple of strangers have been living in a small space for God knows how long, sitting in the dark, while the sun is shining outside, but they have to hide as good as possible from the infected. But then there is a knocking. A boy is standing outside and calls for help. While some are against it, the boy is eventually brought in. He gets food and tells about what happened. But soon the cabin is being attacked by the infected. Don and his wife try to flee, but Don abandons her and runs off just in time. As he tries to reach the boat nearby, he runs downhill while a whole bunch of infected are behind him, are running towards him. In the last second he reaches the boat, but another survivor falls off the boat, gets infected himself and then cut to pieces by the boat's motor. Don has barely survived. We can already expect that he will suffer from survivor's guilt. But the worst is yet to come. What a great start, which still grabs me even after all these years and a couple of watches. What follows is a quick overview of the rage virus in England. We see when England was abandoned, when the infected died from starvation, and that the NATO under American leadership has occupied England and is working on rebuilding it and finding some survivors. Among the survivors is Don, who has become an administrator in the safety zone. He is reunited with his kids, and as they enter the safe zone, we can see the military presence of the safety zone. We also see the other side, the military. Among them are some recognizable faces. Jeremy Renner, who is probably most well known as Hawkeye nowadays, who is also a sniper here, scanning the location for possible threats. But due to boredom, he is mostly shit-talking with the other snipers, or his buddy who is piloting a chopper. There is also Rose Byrne as a scientist and soldier, and Idris Elba, who is commandeering the whole operation. But soon after Don is reunited with his kids, they decide to escape the safe zone and go back home. They are spotted when leaving, and soon the military finds them. But not before they make an important discovery. Their mother, Don's wife, is still alive. Don is shocked by this revelation, and his kids are asking difficult questions. But not only Don is shocked, the scientists in the safe zone are as well, because Don's wife has been bitten. But she has not turned. Don visits her, he tries to apologize to his wife, who is basically catatonic. He talks to her, he kisses her. But the kiss is the start of a new outbreak. While his wife hasn't turned into an infected, she is still carrying the virus. And Don's act of love, a kiss, soon turns into rage. The unsuspecting people of the safe zone are soon turning into mindless killers who just want to bring death and spread the virus. As the outbreak starts, in the heart of the safe zone the situation quickly spirals out of control. The siblings are saved by the scientist medical officer Scarlett, and together they try to escape, but Andy, the younger sibling, gets separated from them. He sees what his father has become and runs outside together with other survivors, but also infected chasing the group and soon being among the survivors. The soldiers are shooting the infected, but soon they become indistinguishable from the other survivors and everyone becomes a target. It also doesn't take long until the soldiers are overrun by the sheer mass of infected. Jeremy Renner, who plays the sniper Doyle, eventually can't take it anymore and abandons his place to join the other survivors and tries to save as many people as he can. As the city will be firebombed soon and everyone still alive has to be eradicated. It's a desperate fight for survival that ensues through London. And this fight, this struggle, this race against time is pretty relentless. We see many sights in London, we see many places turning into battlefields and soon being plastered with corpses and body parts. Not only the infected are a danger for the survivors though, also the military killing and burning. Not just infected, but every person who still breathes, to contain the situation, to end the infection. But the biggest danger is Don. In constant rage and basically leading the infected, he turns into a force of nature. He seems to be on a mission, kill what is left of his family, and he just doesn't stop. As I said, this movie is a different kind of beast than the original. It's not quiet, slow and a thoughtful approach of a horror drama. It's loud, thrilling and bloody. The music score is used much more than in the first one, but it's well used in my opinion. What did annoy me at times though are the jump scares. The sound mixing is just created in a way that every breaking or screaming is immensely loud. The way to create a new outbreak is also a bit convoluted, especially if you think about it. Some things don't really make that much sense, but when it's happening and you are willing to dispense your disbelief, it can engage you quite a bit. The characters are sympathetic and played by likable actors. The movie has just a different style in general as well. The camera work is more inventive and really puts you into the action, sometimes quite literally as you follow the infected. It also just looks much better than 28 Days. 28 Days Later had used some consumer-grade digital cameras, which made it look visually like shit even in high definition, but 28 Weeks has such a sharp, crisp look. While I do like the action in general, there are some scenes that are a bit over the top. The firebombing of the safe zone reminds you that this didn't have such a big budget. It's also a bit odd to see everything being destroyed, but Don just hiding in an alley and being safe. Also, the helicopter massacre, while having some cool moments, just feels so over the top. What is actually a shame though is that some actors are a bit wasted, especially Robert Carlyle, who plays Don. He plays an interesting character with a lot of baggage and potential for drama, but he is soon turned into an infected, and from here on he is basically just a monster. It's still scary to be chased by Carlyle, but that guy can act, especially as a bad guy, as you can see in Trainspotting, and a personal favorite of mine, Ravenous. Idris Elba is also basically doing just a cameo, but Rose Byrne and especially Jeremy Renner do a very good job. And seeing Harold Perrineau was also cool. He is famous for Lost, but I am currently watching the HBO show Oz and now see him here, also mostly sitting, which was interesting. It's not a perfect movie, but neither was the original in my opinion. The original has a bad picture quality and will never look good. Jim is too often an idiot, and while it's well made in general, it also follows a lot of cliches of the genre. 28 Weeks Later has also issues, but it is a solid movie as well, but for different reasons. I love how well the action is pulled off. I like the characters, and the constant chase is really thrilling. The violence, camera work, action and music is pretty well put together, but the story has some obvious flaws and a few scenes were a bit too ambitious for the budget. Even after all these years, the duology is still solid, and while I used to like 28 Weeks a little bit more back in the day, I like them equally as much now, but for different reasons. I just hope the next couple of sequels will be as good as the first two, and I will give 28 Weeks Later an 8 out of 10. Yeah, I still like the movie. What do you want to do?
We've lost control. Kill everyone.
Be my shadow, that's it.